I've never read the Bible, never read it, even to this day.
Okay.
But growing up, I still knew the difference between right and wrong. My dad never preached to me or anything. But
when you say you knew the difference between right and wrong, give me an example of something that you knew to be wrong.
So I give in to my desires. I'm jealous of someone because he's got something that I want, and I've gone up and I've taken it off of him.
Yep.
I know later on that evening I felt bad within myself.
Yep.
So therefore
do you know what the 10th
learned that was wrong to
Do you know what the 10th commandment is? 10th commandment is do not envy thy neighbour's ass, thy neighbour's wife, thy neighbour's property. So your very first example that you said, I knew what was right and wrong when I was a kid, is something that was informed to you by the Christian faith. Because the Christian faith in the 10th commandment says, don't desire.
I never learned. No, but I never heard that from the Christian faith. That's what I'm saying. As a human, I would have learned what's good and bad anyway. By doing bad things, you make mistakes. So you learn from making mistakes.
Yep.
That's without God or any intervention of any kind.
Basic human law.
I agree with you that I agree with this, bro. I agree with you that it is a natural law. That's why it's the 10 Commandments, even though the Mosaic law is not something that Christians seek to follow, we still use the 10 Commandments as a discipline tool, because the Mosaic law, when it was revealed, included natural law as well. So even though the Mosaic covenant is finished, the natural law continues. So I agree with you. It is something that a person by their own reason can achieve. They don't need scripture for it. But what I'm saying to you is that in the cultural milieu that we were brought up in this country, the kingdom that we were brought up in, back as far as Alfred the Great, the Christian faith became the touchstone upon which we understood right and wrong. And so, the fact that you came to understand that, I believe, and I have good reason to believe, is because even though you were not aware of it, the Christian faith still echoes in our society. People are still picking up its messages. The idea of treating your neighbour as you want to be treated, lots of people know that, lots of people use that, lots of people say that.
I used to say it before I knew it was from the Bible.
It's straight out of the Bible.
I never knew it was
exactly
from the Bible.
Because the thing is, our culture echoes with Christianity. Christianity is no longer the guiding voice, but it has spoke so long and so loudly in the chamber of...
I don't see why I should credit Christianity with these things that I've deemed to be right and wrong. Like I said, I've never been influenced by Christianity.
If you remember, the way we turn to this conversation...
Islam is just as much responsible for what good things I've done as Christianity is.
Not really.
By your own standards.
No, not really, because Islam has not influenced our culture in the way that Christianity has. And if you want to try and argue that it did, you're arguing against history.
Yeah, but I knew as much about Christianity as I did about Islam.
But bearing in mind, you just did say to me that you've never read the Bible or the Quran. That means you don't know much about either religion. But I'm stood here as someone who's read an entire translation of the Quran, and I've read the entire Bible, and I studied it academically at university. So out of the two of us, who do you think knows more?
You.
Right. So what I'm saying to you is that in terms of the influence of this society, Christianity stands astride like a Goliath, like a Titan, to every other ideology, with the exception of one. Which is that now our society is guided by liberal progressive philosophy from the Enlightenment, which still even, because it was born in Western Europe, still works around, or did until quite recently, still worked around the rudiments, the paradigm that was inherited from it by the previous Christian civilization. Okay? So I'm calling you to something more ancient, more older. I'm calling you to something that I believe is better. And I'm inviting you to explore it. And
definitely learn more.
Okay, that's fine. On that note, I'd like to give you a gospel. Go away and read it, and then come back, and then next week or one of the weeks that you see me in the future, just pull me to one side and we'll and write down all your questions that you've got, and we'll just go through them. I am cold as well.
My toes are really cold.
So this is the Gospel of Mark. I'll just give you, from a literary point of view, just as speaking as a literary student, the Gospel of Mark was written by one of the students of Peter. He was being discipled by Peter in Rome, and it is a remembrance of kind of like Peter's sermons, and it is a reworking of Peter's sermons to demonstrate that Christ is the fulfillment of the Old Testament prophecy, and that he was supposed to be the suffering servant, and that he rose again. And the question that I will leave with you to go away and think about is that what convinced the very, 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 very first Christians, like the absolute first Christians, that Christ had risen from the dead? That's the question I want to leave you with to think about. All right? There you go. You have a great evening.
Very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. I'm going to get a cup of tea now because I'm absolutely frozen. Yeah. So I'm going to try and warm up a bit before I go on. You have a great day. It's really lovely talking to you. And can I just say, right, this is what I appreciate. A guy that's willing to ask sincere questions. Every point he made, even though obviously we disagree with him, every point he made, every question he asked, sincere. Right? He's a rare token in Speaker's Corner.
Thank you.